What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week, and we've got a special pay-per-view edition of the live stream this week for UFC 290. International Fight Week is upon us, and in a few days, we have two title fights on the line. Big pay-per-view with Alexander Volkanovski defending his featherweight championship against Yair Rodriguez. We've got in the flyweight division, Brandon Moreno defending once again a rematch this time against Alexander Pantoja. So there's a lot of huge names, but a lot of huge money lines on this card. And with me on the show, returning guest, fan favorite on the channel, I've got Brady from DFS by the Numbers, one of the sharpest minds in MMA gambling today, to help us find some betting spots here, because I've got very few so far. How you doing, Brady?
I'm doing good. I think this is my favorite card of the year from like a fan perspective. I'll be in attendance. Yeah. I'll probably have some like degenerate parlays with crazy favorites, but in terms of betting spots sticking out in this card, I'm not finding a ton. So I'm hopefully after we go through it, maybe we'll find some spots together. But right now I only have 3 bets, and there's like 14 fights, so there's not a ton sticking out. But maybe we'll find some stuff here.
Yeah, one of the common themes when I was doing the breakdown for this one was, and I haven't heard yours yet too. I try to wait so I can get a fresh reaction from you on these. I'll watch it after we finish up. But a common theme for me was like, all right, this money line is out of whack, but I'm still picking the favorite to win. You know what I mean? That was like a common thing. I sound like a broken record doing the breakdowns for it. But man, when do you fly into Vegas? Are you doing like the weigh-in day, or are you just coming the fight day?
I'm going to just miss weigh-ins, which kind of sucks. Just kind of how it worked out with the flights. But I'm heading out around 4 Eastern. I'll get to Vegas around like 5, 6 Vegas time. And then so just going to casino it up on Friday. And then tomorrow, and then Saturday going to the I think it's called like UFC X, something like that, where you get like the autographs and the meeting the fighters, and then going straight from there to the fight. So yeah, should be a fun time.
Yeah, it's always a mixed bag of people you see that are just there not fighting or coaching, and they're just there to enjoy themselves for the big fight week. You never know who you're going to run into. It's fun, and a lot of those people look extremely different in person too. In the chat already, I see Victor De Jesus. This guy's a sniper when it comes to like spotting fighters and like random MMA personalities in the crowd. At Bellator, he was pointing people out left and right. I'm like, is that really so-and-so? Yeah, he's amazing at it. He's got the eyes of a hawk. What's up, Victor De Jesus? We got Daz Files in the house as well. I'll shout out the chat before we begin. He says, lower weights don't lift them. Less injuries, more growth. The science is in lowering is the way to go. Is that true, Brady? You're a connoisseur of the gym. Is this bullshit? What's Daz telling us here? This sounds like some down under logic.
Is he saying like the flyweights don't lift? I don't know what he's saying here.
I think he's talking about heavy eccentrics instead of the concentric.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, man. What's going on? Daz, I don't know. Daz, in my sport, I got to raise weights. They don't care if I walk out on the platform with 1,000 pounds on my back and just fall to my death. They'd still probably give me red lights on that one. But we move on. Oh, we got our guy Gordo in the house, Plays and Fades Sports. Everybody go to follow his channel, subscribe, putting out awesome content. I think you just did a show with him as well, Brady. So yeah, man, he's saying hello to Daz. We got Brandon Olson in the chat saying, oi, Patrick and Brady. We got Zach Johnson in the house and what's up, dudes? And Brandon won't be able to place bets till Saturday, so thinking I may need to go fave parlay around robin. Yeah, there's a lot of favorites. You could choose the 5 juicy favorites here and get like what? You have to pay minus 200. So it's going to be slim pickings this week, but hopefully we can find some spots. We still have all 14 fights in the card. I know the Bone Nickal and Jack Della Maddalena both had some short notice replacements, and I'm not sure if these bouts are any more competitive than their original opponents. But starting all the way down at the bottom of the prelims, man, we got a lightweight bout between Kirk and Esteban Ribovics. Actually, one of the more closer lined, like playable money lines on this card, with Esteban Ribovics being minus 145. We've got Kirk making, I think, his third walk to the cage at this point. He's a plus 125 underdog. And I'll kick this one off, man. I like Ribovics in this spot. This is actually the first money line I placed at minus 140 for 2 units. I just love the aggression. I like it. It's not as technical as Kirk, but it is higher output, higher effectiveness. And as we saw in his last fight against Loic Radzhabov, that was a very impressive loss in a debut there, where he kept on getting up, making Loic work, and actually hurt him several times on the feet. Kirk, one of these grappler types that really doesn't like to push the issue. He's a technical counter striker for the most part. So I don't think that's going to be enough to get the judge's nod or even finish the fight. So I'm taking Ribovics here with decent confidence. What do you think about this matchup, dude?
Yeah, there's a couple lines that just I don't really get it. I get the love for Camilla Kirk here. So yeah, I like Ribovics. I guess I can kind of see what people are saying. Like Ribovics, his takedown defense is atrocious. Kirk, in theory, should go out there and wrestle, get the fight down to the man. He's a black belt. But the thing is with Kirk, yes, he's a black belt, very good grappler. He just doesn't use it as much as he should.
Right.
Secondly, I don't know if he has the cardio to do that across 3 rounds. And thirdly, he's coming up a weight class here. And yeah, Ribovics can be taken down, but once he gets taken down, he pops right back up, more often than not. So I just feel at some point Ribovics probably does catch him. I haven't jumped in on Ribovics yet. I was gonna see if the line kept coming down for him. But yeah, I'm taking Ribovics here as far as a pick. No bet for me yet. I was potentially looking at the under or like the fight does it go, but that's like minus 215. I don't love that. I was looking at potentially Ribovics inside the distance, but it's like plus 100 when he's like minus 145. So if I am playing anything in this fight, it is probably the Ribovics money line, but I'm not in a rush. I'm going to see where the line goes throughout the week.
Yeah, one thing I was always skeptical about making his debut for Ribovics is these guys that come off the regional scene in a debut, possibly on short notice, and they have 100% finish rate, right? He's got 6 knockouts, 5 submissions, never won a decision. That's like a big red flag that they might not have the cardio to last. But he had some pretty big power on his strikes, even in round 3, even after defensively grappling and getting up multiple times against Radzhabov. So that was kind of a mark towards me betting him in this spot and trusting him a bit more. But I think there still are some question marks on Camilla Kirk. We haven't seen him a whole lot in the UFC, and the guy's just been super inactive. Like, when did he make his debut? I feel like I've heard this name Camilla Kirk in the UFC for a while, and he's only had 2 appearances. That goes all the way back to
like 2021, 2020.
Yeah, mid 2020, 2021. Okay, he was in the LFA. That's probably why I've heard of him. And he was on the Contender Series against Billy Q. That's right. So yeah, he's been around dabbling with bottom of the barrel level UFC competition for a while. And yeah, I see Zach Johnson thinking Kirk could get the sub. It's certainly possible because Ribovics is one of these guys, Brady, where like Welcome's getting taken down because he's got that one trick where he's like, I'll just crank a Kimura. That'll get you to either sweep over or let me get back to my feet. And there's a couple of guys in this card that have like that one trick where they're like, yeah, take me down. I've got a guillotine or a Kimura. They just rely on that one strategy. It can be kind of scary. I can see where you're coming from, Zach. We got Gordo saying the best edge for Kirk is that level of competition. But yeah, that's something to note here. I keep on forgetting since he is kind of a long, skinny rail of a guy. He is making a jump up 10 pounds to lightweight here. He has only been at featherweight in the UFC so far, so something to think about. But yeah, that's my first money line and really like my only confident one I've got so far on this card as we move through it. There's one other underdog I like, but yeah, struggling to find some spots here. But these are the ones that I always tape first, Brady, on these big cards where it's like, all right, I kind of know that there's unplayable, minus 500s and above. Let me find the one that's closely lined and see what I like here.
Exactly.
But I don't know if we're going to find that in the next fight up. Fight number 2 on the prelims, we got Shannon Ross at flyweight taking on Jesus Aguilar. This is a spot, I'll let you kick it off first, but it's a spot where it's 2 guys that are very bottom of the barrel at the weight class, I would say, and I really don't really care to put my money behind either guy. So what can you tell me about these guys? What's a positive from each guy that you like? I mean, obviously you've got a grappler in Jesus Aguilar and a striker in Shannon Ross, but both guys looking for their first win. What impresses you, if anything, about these guys?
So when I saw this fight was on the card, like I was upset about it because I was like, man, I gotta watch. This might be a fight where I go and get some White Claws. They're like $10, but I'm gonna have like 20 of them. So this might be like a White Claw.
You're down 2 units in White Claws by the time the main card.
Yeah. So it can be down 2 units for sure. But yeah, I mean, this is another line. The line movement. I get it. Like, yeah, it could be competitive, but putting your money on Shannon Ross is just something I would never do. I like to think of Shannon Ross as the Australian Malcolm Gordon, just because this guy has some of the worst durability I've ever seen in my life. He's been finished so many times. He's been dropped so many times. He got dropped 3 times on the Contender Series. I mean, he's a flyweight. You shouldn't be getting dropped 3 times by anybody. I mean, you're a flyweight. He got starched in 60 seconds against Kletzen Rodriguez. And luckily for Shannon Ross, he's going against Jesus Aguilar, who has like one of the shortest reaches in the UFC in terms of a male fighter. I think it's like 62-inch reach for the guy. And he's not really some, murderous power puncher, but still, I mean, Jesus Aguilar is a guy that what does impress me about Aguilar is one thing and one thing only. It's the guillotine. That's really the best thing he's good at, is that guillotine. He can wrestle a little bit. I don't like really anything here. The only thing I would look at, though, is Aguilar by submission, and it's currently sitting at plus 200. I think if I was to play anything, it would be like an Aguilar submission. This guy has a ton of submissions on his record, and Ross has been submitted, I think, once or twice. So give me Aguilar by submission. Nothing I'm really running to the window for, though. And like you said, this is the fight that I'm least looking forward to.
Yeah, man, I'm just as a pick wise. I mean, this is like the lowest confident one. I'll lean if there's an underdog that's coming through in this card out of the handful that will. I think Shannon Ross is capable of doing that, just because this is such a change of pace for him. He's finally not fighting like a striker that can test that Malcolm Gordon-like chin of his, right? He's not facing a Vinicius Salvador that's going to throw wildly. He's not facing a guy like Clayton Rodriguez that's going to bum rush him in 1 minute. So I think this is a possible spot where he could just stand on the outside. His striking isn't bad. Defensively, not that great, and obviously the chin doesn't hold up, but I do like his striking weapons pre-UFC and pre-Dana White Contender Series, much more than Aguilar's for sure. But yeah, I mean, Aguilar's a guy, that guillotine is impressive. He's always dangling his left leg out there just so he can scoop up that left-sided guillotine. That's really his party trick, and he could do it even late in the fight. We saw him get that in round 3 on the Contender Series for him. So what I mentioned in my breakdown is I'm like, look, there's a spot where Shannon Ross has taken a lot of money. Like, it's come all the way down from plus 180. It's kind of evened out now. I mean, it's a spot where I would probably personally line, if it's not a pick 'em, like I'd put Shannon Ross as a slight favorite, but no way I can put my money behind this guy like you mentioned. So just nothing I could really do with this. So not a whole lot of Shannon Ross love from either of us here, but I do think that he's got some qualities. But dude, he's got what is he, 34 years old now, just a journeyman's record of 20 total fights. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do with this guy if he loses.
Probably cut him.
Yeah, I mean, he came in here on short notice after a loss in the Contender Series to fill in for somebody Clayton was going to fight, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then he got an ass to the face. He got a few punches, an ass to the face, and then knocked out in less than a minute. Amazing start to your career. Yeah. I hear no love for Ross this week. That Land State's close. He sucks so bad. Dude, everybody's just tearing him apart this week.
I have been for sure.
I love it. We can move right along to something a little bit higher tier here. We've got a bantamweight bout between Cameron Saaiman, the South African phenom. He's taking on Terrence Mitchell, who's a short notice replacement for, I believe it was Christian Rodriguez, correct? Terrence Mitchell coming in off the Alaskan regional scene, which is never a good thing to hear on first glance. But this guy has actually been unbeaten in the past decade or so, just hanging out in Alaska FC, outside of that one exhibition match with Kai Kara France where he got destroyed back in 2016. So Terrence Mitchell, pretty well-rounded, I would say. When I watched this tape, I did like what I saw, but just the level of competition was not really proving much to me. You know, he was like a flashy kicker, a flashy knockout striker for the most part of his career. And now lately, his past 3 fights, he's been, really just employing either a club and sub or a wrestling game plan. And I think he's got 3 first-round subs in all 3 of his previous bouts. So, man, mostly a fast starter, used to getting the job done quickly. But I think Saaiman is just undefeated, 8-0. He's got a pretty good resume under him so far. He took on the black belt specialist in BJJ, Obi-Wan Shinobi the Pillow, back in December, and managed to stay safe in all of his tricks. Get the late finish there. He was able to take on a power puncher, Manny Martinez, kind of flip the script on him and damage him in that fight. So I think Cameron Saaiman's pretty well equipped for whatever Terrence Mitchell brings to the octagon. So I think he gets the job done and pretty quickly. I do like the under 1.5, oddly enough, in this bout. It's right around minus 145 to minus 155. I think that covers both sides here. And Cameron Saaiman's money line is so juiced at minus 500 or so. I think that's a way to cover, his inside the distance, but as far as him slipping on a banana peel as well. So, yeah, we're looking at minus 550, Cameron Saaiman, plus 400, Terrence Mitchell. What can you tell me about this fight, man? Did you see anything from the Terrence Mitchell tape that would be crucial in this fight?
No.
Not at all?
I mean
yeah.
This should be Saaiman. The only problem is I was actually going to parlay up Saaiman with something from last card. Couldn't find anything I like, though. I was thinking about maybe the Bree2 under 1.5, but I didn't pull the trigger on it. And at that point, Saaiman was minus 370, 380. Now he's minus 550. I don't love that, but I think he wins this fight. I think he finishes this fight. His inside the distance prop is minus 300, which that's wild to me for a bantamweight fight. But I mean, it makes sense. I guess the only thing that sticks out is I might just parlay up like the fight does a good decision. It's around like minus 400 because, like you said, Mitchell is a very fast starter. If he wins, it's probably like a first round sub. I don't think it's likely, but that's how he wins the fight. And if he does not get that early sub, Saaiman's going to beat the crap out of this guy on the feet and probably finish him like late first. Saaiman's not, much of a like murderous power puncher. He typically has finishes late. So for that reason, I think I would just parlay like the fight doesn't go or the under 2.5 rather than that under 1.5, but I think the under 1.5 probably hits. So I'm gonna probably parlay up some violence if I can find something I like. I guess the only thing that stuck out other than that was so the inside the distance for Saaiman is minus 300. The Saaiman knockout prop is minus 140. I kind of lean towards it being knockout. Mitchell has been knocked out in one of his 2 losses. The other loss was a decision, and then he got knocked out in like 30 seconds by Kai Kara-France. So I think Saaiman is much more likely to knock him out rather than submit him. I guess he could submit him, but I think it's knockout. So nothing for me yet, but I think I might just do like a square violence parlay because if this fight went 15 minutes, I'd be fairly surprised.
Yeah, I think Terrence has only been a decision like one time in a loss at some time. I think it was a while back too, like years ago. So yeah, I'm seeing what you're seeing here. That's crazy for a Cameron Saaiman fight at this point. This is where we're at on this UFC 290 card. It's you're paying chalk to get him by knockout. Pretty incredible stuff here. And Zach Johnson right on the money. Y'all know his DQ is on the table.
True.
Yeah, man. What was the Stephen Kozlo? It was a downed opponent knee, right? Pretty vicious knee he landed on him.
Yeah, I mean he's crazy with the fouls. Like it's wild.
His last fight wasn't it eye poke and Andy bags?
I was there watching live, man. It was like 5 eye pokes, like 50 nut shot. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing, dude. No wonder. I know Lou's playing that Yant bag on this one. I might have to as well for plus 2,000 if they're lucky enough to give us the default price on it. So got to shout out a few people here. My guy 2 Cents in the building. I saw his show earlier with on Aaron the Dog's channel. Him and Lou did that show earlier in the evening. Awesome work there. My guy Tyler from 138 MMA, always doing technical breakdowns. I still have to catch his show this week with his fancy whiteboard, taking us to class. And he's got a fancy new camera too. He's like an 8K. It's amazing. You can see the fine resolution of his markers on the whiteboard, and you really feel like it's an immersive experience. You could find a prop on Mitchell to win specifically by DQ. Imagine if they did that. Instead of like by KO, TKO, DQ, it's just by DQ only. You get the what was it? The Mike Jackson special, him against Dean Barry.
Yep. Wild.
Yeah, man. People say he's dirty, but he's just young. That sounds kind of filthy. What are you getting at, Zach Johnson? The young whippersnapper fight IQ says just my 2 cents. I think that's exactly what it is, man. Just wants to poke people in the eye like he's back in grade school. But we can move right along. We're on the same side of that massive favorite. This one, man, this money line has kind of swelled up as well at light heavyweights. We got Vitor Petrino, the Brazilian power puncher, takes on Marcin Prachnio, the Polish karate stance fighter here. And man, Marcin Prachnio, I can't believe this guy is still hanging around the UFC at this point in time, to be honest, after like being on a string of embarrassing flatline KO losses to such names as Slow Mike Rodriguez, Sam Alvey. You know what I mean? Like this guy's still hanging in there with a few odd performances like the one over William Knight, but he's taking on a 25-year-old Brazilian athletic freak at the weight class. Like one of these guys that's so carved up and muscular, you're surprised he makes 205. And he showed some decent not only knockout power last time against Anton Turkoglu, who's like made of granite, but he showed some good cardio, able to mix in the wrestling game plan in all rounds of the fight, scramble into dominant positions, even when taken down by Turkoglu. So I like Vitor Petrino in this spot, mostly just because I'm fading the durability of Prachnio. Is there a world where that decision prop for Prachnio at plus 600 comes to fruition, Brady?
Yeah, I think that's how it had to win. Like for Prachnio to win this fight, it's probably going to be like 100 leg kicks for the win here. But I like Petrino a decent amount. Looks like money's coming in on Prachnio here. And Petrino went from like minus 300 to minus 265 as of late. But I parlayed him up last week at minus 250. Nice. So probably not going to beat a ton of line movement, I'd say, but it is what it is. I think Petrino is pretty solid. He's only 25 years old, like you said. has a ton of power. I think the power can give Prachnio issues. I also think a sneaky angle is Petrino going out there and wrestling. He got 7 takedowns in his last fight. We saw Philippe Lins go out there and wrestle Prachnio, and Prachnio gassed out in the process in like 5 minutes. So I just think Petrino has a lot of avenues to win this fight, whether it's, taking off the head of Prachnio, whether it's wrestling across 15 minutes, whether it's, taking him, mixing in the takedowns, eventually landing a big shot, whether it is going 15 minutes on the feet where Prachnio lands a leg kick or two and then Petrino, wobbles Prachnio across the cage. I just think Petrino has a lot of avenues to win this fight. Whereas if Prachnio wins, like I said, some leg kicks, some body kicks, in a pretty boring decision. But that just, Petrino doesn't really strike me as a guy to go out there and just point fight with Prachnio and play patty cake with him, just like William Knight did. And Khalil Roundtree, that fight was just weird where Roundtree just did not show up that night. So Petrino's a killer. I expect him to go out there and fight like a killer. And if he does, he should knock out Prachnio, who's been knocked out like 5 times, 3 times in the UFC, and almost the 4th in the Philippe Lins fight.
Yeah, that was a very close stoppage as well. But, dude, isn't that weird how I'm only realizing this like today that Marcin Prachnio is – if he has one more of these performances, dude, then it's got to be Marcin Prachnio and not William Knight or Khalil Roundtree. But like he just turns people into like really tentative, just turns them into stone. You know what I mean? What if Vitor Petrino goes out there and just does nothing, throws like 8 strikes over 3 rounds, like William Knight style? Like then it's Prachnio, dude. He's just like he's the intimidating Polish force. He just
so intimidating. He's so intimidating. It's crazy.
Like, just can you imagine? That'd be terrible. But yeah, I think he should clean his clock by knockout Petrino in like probably under 7.5 minutes here. I like that spot there. But we're probably paying chalk on that, right? Petrino by knockout. Yeah, like minus something. Minus
160 right now, I see.
Minus 160 on that. Yeah, that's oof. And round 1 KO plus 175. Oof. Yeah, I like what you're doing. The money line did come down a bit. I think BetOnline's got it minus 265. Parlaying that up the way that you did with something else you like on this card that's not outrageous. But yeah, he should win. I'm really impressed with the future on Petrino. Like he's another one of these guys that had a red flag and mostly finishes. His 1 decision win before his debut against Anton Turkley, he got out grappled early on and then did just enough with the striking, in the fight to win the decision. But yeah, he looked like his cardio held up because he threw 110% into all those strikes, whether they landed or missed. And he still, kept a poker face and was certainly tired at the end of the fight, but kept trucking. So, yeah, I like that. I think he's got a bit of a future here at the division. Still young at 25. So, and his first name's Vitor, dude. He's destined for greatness. We know this. So,
100%.
So I'm on him to win here. I haven't gotten around to playing this yet, but that might be a spot I'll look for a violence bet or something like that. There's a couple spots I'm looking at. Maybe we'll talk about them further on, but yeah, just like you alluded to earlier in the show, like if there's some violent spots you can just kind of chain together. Yeah. That might be the way to play some of these, and not from a side. But we move on to is this a catchweight bout? A 130 catchweight between Tatsuro Taira and Edgar Chairez. We've got the short notice replacement, Edgar Chairez, making his debut here. We did see this guy lose to Clayton Carpenter on the Contender Series last season of the show about a year ago. He's taken on a grappling ace, the undefeated 13-0 Japanese Tatsuro Taira, who's been just nothing short of impressive so far. Just really patient for as young as he is, and as good of a grappler as he is. He's not really rushing positions. He waits for you to make a mistake, and he starts planting traps with his submission game. Edgar Chairez not totally a bum. I mean, this guy usually starts very fast in his fights. He trains out of Entram Gym with guys like the flyweight champion Moreno. And he's been in some decent spots, like in Fury FC. We saw him almost murder a guy because of the ref earlier this year with that triangle choke. Did you see that clip that was making its rounds on Twitter?
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And what a gentleman, right? He decided to let that go and turn it into an armbar so the guy would wake up from the blood choke. Just a true gentleman and a scholar there. But man, he's got his work cut out for him against Taira. How do you see this playing out, man? Is there a chance that Chairez comes in here and upsets him? In this fight, he's like a plus 600 underdog. Tatsuro Taira about a minus 1,000 favorite. Is this the parlay buster?
I mean, everybody has a chance, right? But I don't think so. What I do think is I think this fight might go just a little bit longer than people expect. It looks like the under 1.5 is juice, which is kind of wild for a flyweight fight, but the under 1.5 is like minus 135. I don't think Chairez is like some complete bum. I actually think he's solid. He's huge for the division. Solid striking, shut off some solid striking in that Contender Series fight against Clayton Carpenter. The problem I do have with Chairez, though, is I don't like his cardio at all. I think his cardio is a huge issue, and then he is coming in here on short notice. So I think he might actually put up a solid fight in these first 5 minutes. But as this fight goes on, I do expect Taira to eventually get some takedowns, eventually take the back, and eventually finish this fight. So how I'm kind of looking at it, obviously that you can't lay minus 1,100 on Tatsuro Taira. You can't even play Tatsuro Taira inside the distance at minus 300, which, by the way, that's ridiculous. Minus 300 for a flyweight to go out there and finish a fight. I mean, that's wild. But what I will think about doing is playing in the Taira submission props minus 250. What is going on this week? But anyway, I'm gonna.
What could go wrong? What could go wrong?
What could go wrong with a minus 250 submission prop? And the answer to that is everything. But what I will do is I'm gonna sprinkle like Taira sub 2, Taira sub 3, and just hope that Chairez is good enough, which I think he is, to at least survive those first 5 minutes while he's fresh. But as he does get tired, I think he is going to make a mistake and get sub. But I'm hoping it's in the second or third round. Right now on Bet Online, they do have Taira round 2 sub at like crappy prices. I think it's plus 300 for round 2, plus 850 for round 3. So I'm going to see what like FanDuel and DraftKings has, but that's kind of how I'm going to attack it, if anything.
Yeah, I don't think FanDuel or DraftKings have those out yet, because I was looking for that before the show. I see it the exact same way. That's why I wrote down for this one is Taira round 2, round 3 sub. I'm seeing what you're seeing on this one, man. I don't think Chairez is not that much of a bum here. He's very physically imposing, kind of like Tatsuro Taira for the weight class. He's got a lot of power early, but like you said, the cardio does fade. And in rounds 2 and rounds 3, there's not that same zip on his strikes that he had in round 1. But Tatsuro Taira, kind of along that point, he's a very patient guy, like we talked about. Really times his entries, kind of calculated. So he could just stick on the outside, wait for Chairez to kind of swing at air and make a mistake, and then that could burn some time off the clock. But also Chairez, I mean, when you see these massive favorites here, especially when it comes to the submission, then you're probably like, okay, is this guy really, is that his main path to victory, is by submissions as well? And sure enough, that's really where, Chairez is one of the most dangerous, is off of his back, throwing up subs. So you've got a bit of an overlapping skill set, and you've got this giant money line as a result. So yeah, I think Taira does get the job done here. The guy's just on a different level with the grappling, but I think it could be late. So looking for those round 2, round 3 submission props would be the way to go for this one, and possibly that over 1.5 too. That's at plus money, right?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Yeah, about plus 105 to plus 110 on some books I'm seeing. So yeah, I like that, especially for a flyweight fight where there's danger early, and Tatsuro Taira's a patient guy when it comes to that. So I might be taking a look at that one, actually. That's not a bad spot. I'll write that one down. But we can keep going to the more exciting fights on the card here. We've got what do we have up next? Another light heavyweight bout, a rematch between Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Menifield from earlier this year in February, where they went to a majority draw. A fight where Alonzo Menifield would have won that on the judges' scorecards if it weren't for that fence grab in round 3. So very sloppy fight in that one. Man, Brady, is this going to be an equally as sloppy fight, or do we see this play out the way the statistics would tell us, and that's under 1.5 rounds?
Yeah, I lost money on the under 1.5 last time, but that fight could have been finished like 70 times. The fight was so close to being stopped. Like if Alonzo Menifield would have let off on just a little bit more around and pound, like the ref was ready to stop the fight. And I honestly think if it was anybody other than Mark Goddard, the fight would have been probably stopped in the first round. So yeah, I might go back to the well with the under 1.5. I thought it might have been like plus money. It's not. I think it's like minus 110, which I don't hate. So I might be taking a look at that. And then I also was thinking about maybe like parlaying up the violence prop, with like the Saaiman violence prop, because I think this fight does. I know it went the distance the first time, but my goodness, I mean, that fight could have been finished so many different ways, so many different times. And as we know, not all outcomes are the same. So I think we do get a finish here. I don't know who it's going to be. Menifield, I think, is very, very live early on for a knockout win. Menifield's takedown defense is solid. His get-up game solid. He's very physically strong. It hits like an absolute truck. Jimmy Crute has no striking defense whatsoever. Shout out to Gordo on the Best Bet show today. He threw out the Menifield KO prop, and I see it at like plus 480. I literally think that's his win condition. So I might take a shot on that Menifield round 1 prop plus 480. I feel like that's his money line, because if this fight gets to the second round, I don't think Menifield's winning this fight. I don't think he has the gas to do so in a fight that I do think is going to be very high paced. So Menifield round 1 KO. I might sprinkle the Crute 2-3. I like the under 1.5. So I'm looking at some violence here. And my pick is actually going to be Menifield to get that first round knockout. But I think, pick him is about right. This fight can go either way. It's a crazy fight.
Yeah, this is almost as low confidence for me as that Shannon Ross Jesus Aguilar fight, to be honest. Like, in terms of where I rank the confidence of these winners, I'm on the Crute side. I know he's down to, I think he was he was over a 2-1 favorite the first time they fought. Now he's down to minus 120, plus 100 even money play for Alonzo Menifield right now. I just think Crute has the easier things to solve in this fight. Like, he started off last fight really well. Like, he went and he actually wrestled right away. He got the fight to the mat pretty effortlessly, was chasing submission attempts as we want to see him do against Alonzo Menifield. But then after that didn't work, he looked a little panicked and gassed out, and he just went to he resorted to just getting in a firefight with like 2 more minutes on the clock against Alonzo in round 1, which is just, it wasn't a good move, and something that I think happened because he was kind of gassed out. So if he could fix that, he's 27 years old. What is he, 27, 20? Is he that young? 27 years old?
He is 27 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude, for 205. Like, he's young enough to, like, that's an easy fix. I feel like the cardio, maybe, just the game planning and sticking to it, the striking defense. I think these are things he could shore up a lot easier than Alonzo Menifield at 35 could shore up his defensive grappling, his takedown defense, his submission defense. Like, I think that's a little bit harder to fix for him. So just going to slightly on that principle edge towards Jimmy Crute taking this to the mat and finishing the fight under 1.5. I like, but yeah, I might take that under 2.5 and just, just kind of parlay that with something else on the card. That's a violent spot as well. So I think we're seeing this one the same way. I think the side is irrelevant. Neither of us want to trust these two, because it's like
100%.
I gotta go in there and once again trust that Jimmy Crute. Like, all right, just don't get in a firefight with Alonzo Menifield in round 1. And this guy's an absolute mongoloid, so of course he's gonna do it.
By the way, did you watch Stat Diggers this week?
No, not yet.
We brought up this picture, and I think it perfectly sums up the striking defense of Jimmy Crute. Look at this. Look at his hands.
He's like standing at attention.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
That's like you sucker punch your friend and like, all right, I owe you one. Put your hands in your pockets. I got to get you back.
I can't believe it. Like, his hands are like nowhere to be found. It's wild. So yeah, I think somebody's getting served here. Hopefully, or I don't want to lose money on another under, but if I do, I'm probably taking it. Frame it.
That's amazing.
It's gotta be framed.
That's gonna be like in his den. His grandkids are gonna blow the dust off an old photo of him, and it's like, "This is when you were a UFC fighter, Grandpa." And he's like, just that 1,000-mile stare in his eye, like, yes, it was. Put that away.
Wow.
All right, so we're on opposite sides of the pick, but we're on the exact same side of not trusting either of these two guys and just taking the violence here. But man, I'm really excited for this. I think the only female fight on the entire card at women's strawweight. Up next, we've got Yasmin Jauregui taking on Denise Gomes here. Mexico in Jauregui and Brazil represented by Denise Gomes. Both women are very, very impressive so far. You know, Yasmin Jauregui, a little bit more hype on her name since she had that awesome debut against Yasmin Lucindo last August. Just a real barn burner there. She came out victorious. And then, of course, she had the round 2 TKO stoppage over Estela Nunes more recently at the end of last year. So she's getting a lot of respect on the money line. And I don't understand it at all, because Denise Gomes is pretty capable. You know, she's a little bit younger, still making improvements, but she had a decent showing in a decision win on the Contender Series. She went in there on extremely short notice, and I thought she looked decent in a loss to Loma Lookboonmee. And then she comes in there and she shuts up Bruna Brazil's hype and knocks her out in round 2. So both women coming off of round 2 TKO stoppages. Brady, can you explain to me why Yasmin Jauregui is a minus 400 favorite and Denise Gomes is a plus 300 underdog? I just couldn't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I can't explain a lot of things this week, man. I can't explain a lot of these lines.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. So many massive favorites. We have like multiple favorites, minus 1,000. And yeah, it's another wide line, but it's one of those lines where it's like, I think Jauregui wins this fight, but am I laying minus 400 on Jauregui? No, I mean, it's not. Laying minus 400 on a WMMA fighter is just not a long-term winning strategy. Like, I think both dogs last week for WMMA came through. We had Lipsky come through, And then we had Luana Carolina.
Luana Carolina. I'm thinking of the other week. We had Hebos there. I'm sorry, Macy Barber upset Hebos the week before.
They come through all the time.
Yeah,
and Denise Gomes, like she has that dog in her. I don't think she's amazing, but she has that dog in her. She's super tough. She's going to be there. I think skill, Jauregui's the better fighter, but minus 400, what are you going to do? So I don't like the money line. Actually, it looks like money just came in on Gomes a little bit. Looks like Jauregui just went to minus 350. And this line should come down a little bit, right? Like there's no way Jauregui should be minus 400. So the picks Jauregui for me, no props really sticking out, like because both these fighters are super tough. So I could see it probably going to decision, but I don't know. I don't really love anything. And by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but all 14 fights on the card are like favored to end inside the distance.
Every single one, really?
Everything. Well, that
makes sense.
The lowest one is the Gomes fight doesn't go, is like minus 105, so that's about a pick 'em. But everything else is like favored to finish. It's a weird week, but
that's insane.
Yeah,
we didn't learn our lesson from the 2 weeks ago, Jacksonville, and everything was supposed to finish as well, and like nothing did. We didn't learn our lesson from that, did we?
That was not a fun time, but yeah, give me Jauregui. What do you think about the? I was looking at like the Gomes, like plus 3.5, like just win a round and don't die. Net cash, I think I saw it like plus 140. But other than that, I'm probably gonna pass here.
I say just go in all the way with a sprinkle on Gomes or piss or get off the pot. Honestly, that's what I'm doing. A half a unit at plus 310 on Gomes here, and it's just such a mispriced line. Like I would see minus 190, minus 200 maybe for Jauregui, not minus 410 the way I saw it. I'm with my guy 2 cents here, taking that Gomes. Not a whole lot, like I said, a half of a unit, but dude, I mean it's a women's flyweight fight. By nature, this could go to decision. By nature, that's going to be closer than we want it to be, no matter what happens. But I think both women have a similar skill set. And Jauregui, although she's technical when she starts striking, she likes to get in range and brawl and firefight. She loves doing that, and then she doesn't get out of range before she gets hit in return. And I think that's where Gomes can kind of take over. We've seen some grappling interest from Denise Gomes, although she doesn't have any credited submissions on her record. We did see her show some pretty good proficiency on the ground against Loma, hitting reversals, getting her in an arm triangle, trying to crank on the Kimura there. So I think this could get ugly, man, and I think both women would invite this getting ugly. So they both hit pretty hard, too. It could be a close fight, when it goes to the scorecards here. So I do like it to go over, which you're saying that's a little bit of plus money on that one? At least even?
On some books it is, I think. I see it like minus 125.
Yeah, minus 165 on Bet Online right now. It's already been corrected a little bit on some of these books, but yeah, I like Gomes here just because of the money line. It's the math is doing the work. I'm like you. I think Jauregui's the better fighter. I think she looks faster. She looks like she's a little bit higher output, probably a little bit better cardio and zip in her strikes and movement over 3 rounds. But dude, if she comes in here as a flat performance for the first time in her UFC career and Gomes looks even more improved, you could just have like it's just one person's night and it's one person's just like off performance. So I'll take advantage of that mispriced line for a half of a unit. Why not, man?
By the way, Lou Becci threw out the Denise Gomes split decision prop plus 2,000
for it. Oh yeah, for her to win by split.
Yeah, for Denise Gomes to win by split plus 2,000. I thought.
Yeah, I might have to tickle those as well. So that would mean that it's probably. I mean, what the hell would it be then? Like plus 600 to go to split on this one?
I think it was like plus 550 for split in general, and then like plus 2,000 for Gomes by split, plus 700 for Jauregui. Something like that.
That's crazy. That's craziness. Yeah, that's really off. Yeah, I'll probably put a little bit of lunch money on that. What's up, Chronic Combat Conversations? What's going on, man? My guy Guru and TB, how you guys doing? I know you guys did a show earlier tonight. Everybody go check out their replay if you weren't there live, man. Always having good guests on. I'm not sure who they had on tonight, but we can move right along too. But that is going to be a fun fight, dude. I mean, and I forgot to mention that Jauregui is 10-0, so that does lead to, of course, her money line being a little bit inflated by nature. But dude, she could drop the ball. I wouldn't be too surprised. But at welterweight, we've got Jack Della Maddalena taking on a newcomer on short notice, Josiah Harrell, who, was supposed to be Sean Brady against Jack Della Maddalena, but of course that fell through. A lot of welterweights, probably even middleweights, were throwing their name in the hat to fight Jack Della Maddalena. But of course, the UFC chooses Josiah Harrell off of the regionals to come in here. I think he last fought in LFA earlier this year, if memory serves me correct. I know it was that clip where he like double leg takedown the guy through the cage door. they ended up in the stands. So, Jack Della should get this done here, right? I mean, he's a massive favorite for a reason. His striking is super slick. His ground game, he showed that he can out-scramble guys like Ramazan Ameev and showed some defense there with the submissions. This is a guy in Josiah Harrell who's fighting up a weight class. This guy's nickname is the Muscle Hamster, and he's like just a little bit too muscular to make 155. He's got all these catch weight bouts at 160, 165. Coming in here with, not the best record on his resume, but at the same time, it's like his win condition is getting the takedowns, getting this fight to the mat, where then he looks for ground and pound or submissions. I just think he's going to have a hard time doing that against such a good mover in Jack Della Maddalena. So, Brady, does Jack Della get a round one knockout here?
He does. He does. His first round prop is minus 200. His inside the distance prop minus 450. He's a minus 900 favorite. I'm kind of upset, man. Like, they got Bo Nickal, his opponent. Gore pulled out. Maddalena, his opponent, pulled out. They couldn't have found like any other guys like than the freaking Muscle Hamster. Which, don't get me wrong, it's a great nickname. And actually found these photos, which I thought were funny. It's a Muscle Hamster, and then there's this one.
I like that one. That guy's buff, man. Look at the delts. Look at how round his delts are, man.
Yeah, it's a Muscle Hamster. So the nickname's awesome, but I mean, it's not a competitive fight. And in terms of like betting on this fight, I mean, you can't. Are you going to delay minus 900 on Jack Della Maddalena? No. Are you going to lay minus 275 on an under 1.5? No. Does it hit? Yeah, but what could go wrong laying this much chalk, man? And then the fight doesn't go minus 800. So yeah, Jack should win. Jack should win by first round knockout. But the Jack first round knockout prop is minus 185. And again, a lot could go wrong just laying a chalky price tag on the round, the method. It's too chalky for me. So give me Jack Della round 1 KO. Not a hot take. That is everybody else's prediction too.
Yeah, you guys got to be real careful when you're looking at these money lines on weeks like this, where you look at them all week, they release them. It's a pay-per-view. You're getting some of these lines early, and you're like, oh, God, if there's only a way to soften this minus 1,500 line, and then they're like, oh, yeah, minus 200 Jack Della by knockout. You're like, I'll take that. That's a much better bet. It's like, it's still a terrible price. It's still not a good deal, So it does, after a while, you look at the numbers, and you're like, I could justify playing this. It's like, no, this is what they want us to do. So we'll be able to get Jack Della against a higher-level opponent, somebody in the top 15, and probably make a better read and make some money off them, but this is probably not the spot to do so. But yeah, I mean, a freaking Muscle Hamster, man. Yeah, could they have not found anybody that could bridge the gap between Sean Brady and Randy Brown, Maddalena's last opponent? But This is the guy apparently, man. But what you were saying about like what could go wrong, dude, what if Josiah Harrell happens to be like an Anton Turkey, where it's like you expect Petrino to just knock him out and he just eats the strikes again and again, and he happens to have like some legendary granite Muscle Hamster chin, and we just didn't see it coming,
Yeah. Or what happens if Maddalena subs him? We saw Randy Brown get subbed by Jack, and everybody's probably betting his KO then. So yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't know what to do on this card, man. I'm struggling because there's not a ton of spots sticking out.
Hey man, it's a fun one to just watch and sit back, but I do like some betting spots in this next fight, though, man. At 170, once again, we've got Robbie Lawler making his retirement fight officially now, taking on Niko Price. And, man, at first glance, this seemed like, okay, it's Robbie Lawler, 41 years old. Niko Price, he's not that old. He's been in the UFC forever, but he's like 33 years old at this point, big for the weight class. Then you dive into it, and you realize both guys are really not having a good time, right? Like, in his last 5, he's 1 win, 3 losses, 1 draw against Donald Cerrone, and that's the record of Niko Price in his last 5. Robbie Lawler, 1-4, the 1 win coming against somebody who's just a little bit more, elderly than him in Nick Diaz. So these guys are just really not having a good time. It does kind of make sense that they are pitted against each other here, and they both like to brawl. Robbie Lawler a bit more technical still, even in his old age. He's got that nice southpaw boxing technique, kind of bobs and weaves, the rope-a-dope style. Niko Price just likes to throw long looping strikes with his head straight up in the air and his hands down. Somebody could go out here, man. Like I don't want to bet Robbie Lawler because he's old and he's retiring, and that just never goes well. But Niko Price, at what, minus 265, minus 275. Once again, this common theme of like, I agree with the side being favored, but I don't agree with the money line one bit. And I'm on BetOnline right now. It came down a bit, minus 240. Whoop-de-doo. It's still kind of way too much for Nico Price. Brady, I saw this like a couple weeks in advance. I saw Robbie Lawler against Nico Price, and Nico was lined. Maybe you'll think I'm an idiot here, but he was lined at like minus 180. And even then, I'm like, do I really want to trust Nico Price in this spot? Like even that I passed on, and now I'm kicking myself. But dude, how do you think this plays out? Like I just don't think anything really goes well when you've got a retiring fighter.
Yeah, I actually saw like minus 170 on Price on Bovada for a second, and I was actually gonna play it, but yeah. I didn't, of course, and then the line's now like minus 250.
But were you like me, where you had that thought where you're like, do I? Like even then, you had some reservations that didn't make you hammer it,
Yeah. Well, it was like pre-tape read, right? And then I taped, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't even think about playing Nico Price at this price tag, because Robbie Lawler, obviously, I think he's washed at this point. He's 41 years old. This is his retirement fight. But Nico Price, I'm kind of worried about him. Like he has looked off like the last several years. He's battling a ton of injuries. Prior to, I think it was his last fight or the fight before, he had like 3 different injuries, in his legs. He showed up with like knee sleeves in one of the fights. He just looks off as of late. So I think Nico Price is a guy that's taken a ton of damage throughout his career. Both guys have. So, I wouldn't lay this price tag on Price, but what I do like, and I actually found a spot that I like finally, Patrick, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I think Violence is actually a solid look here on BetOnline right now. They have the fight doesn't go at minus 175. Both of these guys have no regards for their own safety. Both guys have no regards for any striking defense. I think they're going to go to war. I think they're going to stand and bang. I question both guys and their durability. Both guys have power. Fight doesn't go minus 175 is something I'm taking a hard look at. And then also, I see the fight ends by knockout right now on Bet Rivers at minus 134. And I'm taking a hard look at that as well. So I think Violence is probably the way to go. There is no way I'm laying minus 260 on Nico Price. And then there's also no way I'm betting a 41-year-old Robbie Lawler. I'm actually picking Robbie Lawler to get it done, but zero confidence. What I am confident, though, is I think somebody gets served here.
Yeah, I like that. I just wrote that down for, fight doesn't go to decision. Because I saw in a different book, the under 2.5 was about that price. So I like that. We get that extra 2.5 minutes because... Yeah. It could take a little bit. It could be towards the end of round 3. I mean, we've seen a couple of round 3 finishes against Nico Price at this point. But, yeah, I think you're right. Neither guy really has that much regard for their safety. I mean, I think Robbie Lawler he tries to be more technical, but he stands right in the pocket, so he doesn't really do himself many favors. Nico Price leaves it all in the line, but, again, he's open to getting countered. I think if you compare the last opponent of Robbie Lawler, you compare him fighting Bryan Barberena, who's I think more durable than Nico Price. I don't want to say more defensively, but more durable than Nico Price, but he's less dangerous. Nico Price, the trade-off is he's more hittable, but I think he's more of a finisher. So, yeah, if you just compare and contrast those opponents, I mean, Robbie Lawler got stopped by Bryan Barberena in that fight. It's a standing TKO stoppage where, he ate a couple strikes in return after teeing off on Bryan's beard. And you saw the look in his eye where he's like, what was that? That didn't feel right. Like, I just felt my brain rattle around. He kind of stutter-stepped and just kind of laid against the cage until the ref saved him. So that could really happen with the quickness here. I don't think it'll take a series of strikes. It could take 1 or 2 from Nico Price. Yeah. So I do like that Violence spot quite a bit. I'll probably play that. Will I get greedy and parlay it with like the fight doesn't go or the under for Jimmy Crute Menifield? I don't think I have to at this price. I don't think I have to at this price. It might be like plus 130 if I did do that, but I don't know. We'll see. I might play them separately just because. I might play that under 1.5 for the Crute Menifield one and probably play this one separate just in case, God forbid, one of these doesn't come through. I don't lose everything. It's just one of those weeks where we have so few spots, like why tie them all together? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, I like the read on this one. But are you on which side are you on to get the victory here?
I'm picking Lawler.
Ooh,
as a pick, but I would never lay any money on a 41-year-old retiring fight in Robbie Lawler. But I just think the price tag is like ridiculous. Like Lawler, like the last thing to go is power, right? So Price has been knocked out like 6 times. So, but yeah, I think somebody's getting knocked out, and that's where I'm looking this week.
Yeah, he's been knocked out by. Who's been knocked out by? Philip Rowe, Luque, Darst by Luque as well.
I think
the hell else is it? Jeff Neal. Yeah, Jeff Neal knocked him out. Yeah, it's been quite a few, man. But yeah, Brandon Olson saying the same thing. Not very often I lean the retiring fighter, but I like this one. The only problem with that is it's like for Robbie Lawler, former champion, such a legend of the sport and the UFC and Strikeforce alike. I mean, dude, if he wins by knockout, he's not retiring. He's going to have one or two.
No, come on.
No, if he wins, he's like, I still got it.
Coming for the title.
Yeah, he's like, that happens. He has to like take off his gloves in the cage because he promised. Then he goes home and his old lady tells him to take the trash out, and he's just like, God damn it. He looks at his trunks and he's like, I said, Dana, I need one more.
Please, Dana. No more.
Dana, I need Jack Della Maddalena. I'll knock that kid out. So for his sake, hopefully he doesn't win, but I can see the money line value there. It should be a really fun fight. Might be like one of the potential fights of the night if it lasts over, a round or two.
Mm-hmm.
But we can move on to the main card. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us tonight. Thank you, Brady, for taking the time out of your busy fight week schedule to come and break down the fights with me on this tough card, but an entertaining one. We moved to the main card where we got Bo Nickal taking on another short notice opponent, debuting fighter Val Woodburn, which sounds like a porn star name, in my opinion. And the guy kind of looks like a porn star, too. He's super jacked, black guy out of the Florida regional scene where, porn runs wild down there. So that might be what he moonlights as, but he's a 7-0 professional, fighting all of his amateur and professional bouts in the Florida regional scene. So power puncher, a guy who, threatens takedowns here and there, mostly just ripping guys and muscling them to the mat. He's taking on Bo Nickal, who's, national, international freestyle wrestling champion, Penn State, athlete of the millennium, a guy who's 4-0 at this point, and none of his fights have made it outside of round one. Most of them only lasting like a minute or less. So, I mean, is Val Woodburn the guy, Brady, to drag Bo Nickal into deep waters? Is he the guy here to really expose Bo Nickal for the fraud that he is?
I don't think he's that guy. I don't think so, man. I'm a huge Bo Nickal fan. I'm glad he's still on the card. I'm glad I still get to see him live. I was at his debut against Jamie Pickett. So yeah, I'm happy Bo Nickal's on the card, but my goodness, like they couldn't have found anybody else other than Valentine Woodburn, who I thought was a fake made-up name, but apparently this guy is real. I did see him at the media day today, so he is a real person. I wasn't 100% sure. And what kind of was funny to me was Chris Curtis apparently trains with this guy, and Curtis was like, good luck taking down a fire hydrant. I'm like, man, if anybody's taking down a fire hydrant, it is Bo Nickal. Like, Bo Nickal can take down a fire hydrant, and he will, and he's going to sub this guy in the first round. But like we've been talking about, man, Bo Nickal's going to win. Right, he's minus 2,500 right now, and I made the tweet. He's minus 10,000 on sportbet.io.
Good deal.
What are we gonna do? $100 to win a dollar? Are we gonna bet the under 1.5? Which, by the way, I'm pretty upset. So I was gonna smash.
Dude, parlay that minus 10,000 with Jack Della Maddalena. And, there, boom.
I was upset because I was gonna smash the Nickal Gore under 1.5. They only had it like minus 205. And then in steps this Valentine Woodburn guy. Now they have the under 1.5 at minus 425, which is the most juiced under 1.5 I've ever seen. Even the Jamie Pickett under was like minus like 350. This is minus 425, minus 450. So Bo Nickal's going to win this fight, but Bo Nickal by first round sub, which is the most likely outcome, is probably going to be minus 300. Have you seen that line yet?
I haven't seen lines for it yet. No, they haven't released it. But yeah, it's judging by the under 1.5. I don't have high hopes, but I remember paying. I paid like minus 160 for Bo Nickal round one sub last time against Pickett, and even that was just like I felt filthy, but it worked, And you saw that fight live?
I did.
Dude, did it not feel like that was like a 3-round fight just based on like the length of Bo Nickal fights compared to that one? Like it felt like it took him forever to get the submission. And here it was like 3 minutes.
I had a max bet on the under 1.5. I had like 2 massive parlays with the under, and I was like, tap, Pickett, what are you doing? Tap. And then he finally did after like 3 minutes of being in an arm and head and arm choke or something.
Yeah. Bo Nickal he wasn't like applying so that did kind of show that he's not the most proficient in the BJJ, because a lot of guys when they get that position where like it wasn't even like a closed guard, like his leg was not really trapped between those of Jamie Pickett. Like all he had to do is kind of lean over to the side. I know it's a lot easier from the couch to make these critiques, but still. But Zach Johnson saying, yeah, in all fairness, it's got to be a hard week to find guys to make weight. All things considered, and freaking Val Woodburn is a guy who he came all the way down from heavyweight. Like one of his amateur bouts at heavyweight, all of his amateur bouts except for that one were at light heavyweight. This guy played football as a kid. I mean, I don't think he's been training martial arts like for a lifetime. Like he's got no foundation outside of just picking up amateur martial arts,
So maybe there is value on this round 1 sub then.
Possibly, dude. Possibly. I mean, the guy outside of him just like running his fist Braxton Smith style into the chin of Bo Nickal or like flying kneeing him or something like that. I don't think it's going to go well for him. But I'm always rooting for these big jacked, just gym rat type of guys. Like they're a novelty. I hope he at least has one more fight in the UFC, even if he comes short against Bo Nickal. But yeah, man, Bo Nickal should cruise. And once again, the mystery continues, right, Brady? We don't really know what this guy's chin is like. We don't know what he looks like outside of round 1. I don't think we find any of those questions out come Saturday, but the mysteries continue. It should be a fun time, though.
I want to get your thoughts on this. So the under 0.5 rounds, if it's plus money, I actually might take a look here because Bo Nickal, all of his finishes besides one have finished under half of a round on the Contender Series. They were both about like a minute each. And then I heard an interview with this Woodburn guy, and he was talking about how he got the call like a couple days ago. He was talking about how he was like drinking beer, and he was talking about he was like 211 pounds. I think this could be like quick. I think like this could be like a 1 minute finish here. So that's like the only way. It's super square, but if it's plus money, I might take a look at under half a round because I'm not sure if Nickal gets this guy down, Woodburn probably has nothing.
Yeah, it should be pretty quick. I mean, remember the first contender series fight with Bo Nickal? It was 5 seconds from the start, from the bell, 5 seconds for him to get the takedown. 5 seconds for the guy to go from his feet to the mat. I mean, this guy, Bo Nickal, shoots incredibly fast takedowns. It's so freakishly insane. You're saying as long as it's like plus 100, you think they might open it up at that point?
Yeah, if it's like plus money, I might it's super square, but I think he could finish this fight in 60 seconds.
That would be hilarious, dude. I just wonder, yeah. I mean, dude, what is this guy? This guy, yeah, and Val is like 5'8" too. Like he's super undersized. Like he's built, but he's like not correct for martial arts at middleweight. So yeah, I think he gets dumped on his ass and probably guillotined quite early. So we can move right along to a super fun fight. Maybe more violence, maybe not, but it should be exciting between these two strikers. We got Dan Hooker taking on Jalen Turner at lightweight. A super interesting fight in terms of the physiques of these two guys, man. They're both super big, like size bullies at 155. Jalen Turner 6'3", Dan Hooker 6 foot tall, and Hooker's usually used to being the bigger man over most of the little guys at 155. So I wonder how that will affect his his strategy in this fight. He's a guy who fights kind of that tall man defense, keeps his hands fairly low, baits people in for the pull counter. He's pretty high output, but Jalen Turner is going to be able to reach him and make him pay for his sloppy defense here. So I'm liking Jalen Turner, but once again, dude, this is kind of like that. What am I looking at? Maybe like a Vitor Petrino or like a Nico Price, where it's like I think the favorite should be Jalen Turner, but I don't think it should be this wide. It's a little disrespectful to the resume of Dan Hooker, but Dan Hooker's durability issues have been kind of scaring me off of this one. Getting starched by Arnold Allen, albeit at 145 and a bad weight cut, you could blame it on. But even smaller guys like Michael Chandler, who hits pretty hard, I mean, he's still knocking him out. I think Jalen Turner, with his reach and size advantages, should be able to find the chin of Dan Hooker and probably make him pay. And he's got the slick submission game; he could take it to that realm as well. So, how do I play this? No matter what side I'm on, is this a violent spot, or do you think this does go over more likely than not?
I don't think it goes over. Minus 280 for Turner now. Minus 280. That's kind of wild. Because it's wild because I remember a month and a half ago, DraftKings randomly opened up the lines for 290, and they opened up Jalen Turner at minus 130. And I was planning on like taping it and hopping on. but they took the line off like 20 minutes later. I know a lot of people that got on though. So I didn't get it at minus 130. They opened it back up at like minus 180. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm not as interested. And now he's sitting at like minus 280. I see a minus 295. I think Turner is getting Hooker at the right time here. I do have some question marks about Turner. I question his durability. You know, this is a guy in Turner who's been finished a ton throughout his career. I question his striking defense, which is atrocious on paper. I question the takedown defense of Turner. But, you know, I think he's getting Dan Hooker, like I said, at the right time. Dan Hooker's taken a ton of damage throughout his career. He's been in so many wars. He's starting to get finished. I think he's been finished in his last 3 fights. He's changed his hair blonde, and I'm not in love with the look. It's not great. So that's a big concern for me.
He's going to come out shoot the box style like Elvis Brenner.
He's going to try
like a Daniel Santos. It's going to be amazing.
I don't know about that, but I think he might try to wrestle, but that's just not Dan Hooker's game, right? No. Dan Hooker is not like Mateus Gamrot. Even Gamrot, like I don't know your thoughts on this, but you could have, you know, scored that fight for Turner. Like if damage is the number one criteria, like Turner wins, because Turner hurt him a lot in that fight. Like that decision kind of confused me because Gamrot did nothing besides just like hug Turner for a couple minutes of the fight. But Turner, once he landed, you could tell that he landed and it was affecting Gamrot. So Turner, I think he wins this fight. I think he finishes this fight. I'm not laying the minus 290 on him. But what I do like, though, is either Turner inside the distance around minus 140, minus 150 to get the price tag down, or I like the Turner to win in either round 1 or round 2 at plus money. I saw it at plus 120 on Bet Rivers. Turner has 100% of his wins come before round 3. This guy's a finisher, 100% finish rate, never won a fight that went to round 3. Dan Hooker, when he's getting finished, it's typically in round 1. So I think it's in round 1, but give me that extra round 2. So I'm either going to take a shot on Turner round 1 or round 2, Turner inside the distance. Don't know if I like the under 1.5, but that is plus money. That's kind of tempting. I think, but I don't know if I don't know. I don't know if Turner finishes, if Hooker finishes Turner. So I think I'm just gonna go with the Turner violence props, either that round 1, round 2, or just Turner inside the distance. But I think Turner gets it done in devastating fashion here.
That was a combined finish prop, Turner round 1 or round 2. What was that at? You just played both of those.
Plus 120 on Bet Rivers. You get either round 1 or round 2. I forget what it was on DraftKings, but I think that's a solid.
One of those spots where if you're on the Turner finish side, they're making you choose between KO, which is roughly priced the same at like plus 200 something, with the submission, even if he gets that club and sub. Bonks Dan Hooker over the head, he panic shoots and he gets a guillotine or something that could happen. But yeah, I'm like kind of what you said with Dan Hooker. If he wins, I think it might be by like outpointing him, having a really good night, staying safe on the outside, and just doing more work. And by the time like halfway through round 2 ticks around, maybe Jalen Turner hasn't realized he's losing, the exchanges. He's down based on the total strikes. And then by round 3, it's too late. So I'd probably see like Hooker winning by a decision that way, most likely if he wins. But yeah, I mean, no decision victories for Jalen Turner. So 100% finish rate, even to this point in his career where he's gone. I mean, what is he now in the UFC? He's got a pretty solid record now, right? I mean, aside from that Gamrot split, that broke a 5-fight winning streak for him. So
yeah,
the guy's dangerous. I think you're right. That's a good observation. The fact that he usually finishes fights early, and likewise, I mean, Dan Hooker usually gets starched pretty early in round 1 when he does go out. So I like those calls. Yeah, big money line for Jalen Turner, man. I wish it was a little bit more reasonable, but with the recent history of Dan Hooker, I guess we can see why he's not getting respect on the line. But dude, what if he shows up like in his former 5-round against Dustin Poirier glory, and comes out here looking pretty solid.
I think that version of Dan Hooker is long. I think that Poirier fight just took a lot out of Dan Hooker because he has not looked the same since that war, and rightfully so. That was a war.
Right. One of my favorite fights from him was, it wasn't a good fight for him, but it was even a few fights before that Poirier fight against Edson Barbosa. Barbosa just teed off on him with just treated him like a heavy bag with kicks until finally it took like one gut punch and he just folded in round 3. I mean, just simply amazing stuff. So combine that with his, before MMA, he had that whole kickboxing career too. This guy's 33 years old, but like you said, a lot of fight miles on him. So Jalen Turner making a lot of improvements fight to fight. I like to see it. There's a lot of the concerns you brought up, his durability, even just using his reach to his advantage. I feel like he's gotten better at that. So I was impressed with him even in a split decision loss against Gamrot. I think this is a good matchup for him where he's not really having to worry about somebody grabbing at his feet the entire fight here. So I think he can do Jalen Turner things, probably get the finish at some point early in this fight. But yeah, no plays in this yet. That was a good plus money call, though. Turner round 1, round 2 had some plus money. I might like that. So we can move right along. I had to shout out my guy Shady, who's in the chat earlier. Forgot to shout you out there, buddy. Good to see you in here as always. And yeah, Zach saying that Hooker's chin is on borrowed time. And yeah, remember that shot? He teed off on him against the cage. Barbosa was just roundhouse to the ribs over and over again, just breaking all of his ribs. And then finally, I think even it was one of those things where the commentary team was like, "Stop the fight! This is enough. You could have stopped this rounds ago." Like a bunch of wusses, and then finally just took one soft little love tap from Barbosa to the stomach of Dan Hooker. He just folded. It was amazing.
It was wild, man.
Absolutely good stuff, man. I can't believe that was that many years ago now. But man, we move on to the good stuff, dude. This almost feels like this is a title fight in itself, but not quite. We've got Robert Whittaker, the former middleweight champion, as he takes on Jauregui du Plessis, the surging prospect, currently 5-0 somehow in the UFC. A guy with a nearly 100% finish rate, all except for the Brad Tavares fight for Jauregui have been one inside the distance, pretty equal between his knockouts and his submissions. There's a lot of contrasts of skill sets in this fight in terms of Jauregui du Plessis, all fast twitch muscle fibers, saving nothing for the later parts of a fight. This guy can gas out by the end of round 1 and kind of keep on trucking through that fatigue. Whereas Robert Whittaker, dude, he's been nonstop title fights over his career, nonstop 5-round spots. He's really used to pacing himself for 3 or 5 rounds, getting in range, getting out of range, staying technical, and mixing in all facets of the game. So just, man, it kind of makes sense that this is a wide money line. We're still looking at -400 for the former champion Robert Whittaker, who's been unbeaten in the middleweight division outside of Israel Adesanya. We've got Jauregui du Plessis, who's coming off that round 2 TKO stoppage over Derek Brunson. He's the +300 underdog here. So, man, what's the win condition for Jauregui du Plessis in this spot, man? Is there a world where he goes in here and just schools Robert Whittaker? Looks totally refined, measured. He's got the new nose. He can breathe. He might have a full gas tank this time. Can he outpoint Robert Whittaker and give him a taste of his own medicine here and win by decision, or do you see him getting a round 1 knockout as the only way to win?
I was watching tape on Jauregui, and I was just dying laughing. Like, this guy is I've never seen anything like it. He makes mistake after mistake. He's not technical at all. He's a wild man. He leaves a lot of openings. He gets taken down. He gets put into dominant positions. He gets rocked. He gets hit. He has no regards for his own safety, but he finds a way to win. He's undefeated in the UFC. It's just, I'm not sure if that's going to work against a guy in Robert Whittaker, who he has 2 losses in the last 9 years. And both of those losses come against one Israel Adesanya. So I get why the money line's wide, but I don't want to completely count out Jauregui just because this guy's a wild card. Like, Robert Whittaker's never seen anybody like Jauregui, because there is nobody like Jauregui. This guy fights 100%, balls to the wall as soon as the fight starts. He's a guy that is going to get tired 60 seconds into the fight, but fight through it somehow. It makes no sense. But he's just a wild card. What I don't know. I don't really like much in this fight. This is a Jauregui du Plessis fight, and Jauregui has only been the distance once in 23 fights. In that fight against Tavares, it could have been stopped like 3 times. So I was kind of looking at the violence props. They had right now on Bet Online, actually they had the fight doesn't go -160 and the under 2.5 -160, which that is a mistake. So I might just take the fight doesn't go, but it's a Robert Whittaker fight. And Robert Whittaker typically doesn't finish, but also you got to look at who Robert Whittaker is facing. You're not finishing Marvin Vettori. It's not happening. You're not finishing Adesanya. You're not finishing Kelvin Gastelum. You're not finishing Jared Cannonier. You're not finishing Yoel Romero. So yes, Robert Whittaker has not had a finish since 2017, but you are not finishing any of those guys I mentioned. They're just next level tough. Whereas Jauregui, he actually has been finished. He has 2 losses, both by finish. So I just think Jauregui is going to leave a ton of openings. He's going to get hit, and leaving a ton of openings against, Derek Brunson, that's okay. Leaving a ton of openings against Darren Till, you can get away with it. Leaving openings against Officer Giles, that's fine. Leaving openings against a high level fighter against Robert Whittaker, it seems like a recipe for disaster. So I think Whittaker lands a big shot and puts him away here at some point. The fight doesn't go, I think, is solid. Minus 160 right now. Like I said, everywhere else it's like minus 205, minus 225, minus 220. So right now, BetOnline's hanging the best price by a mile on this one. So I might bite the bullet and play that. But outside of that, nothing's really sticking out to me. How about you?
Yeah, I was dabbling with like the idea of Robert Whittaker. They dropped that combined prop, Robert Whittaker round 3 or decision. I was thinking about maybe something like that could be a look if the plus money is there, just to soften up that giant number. I mean, because Robert Whittaker is one of these guys where he's a gambler's delight. The guy is pretty reliable to go in there and get a decision win over 5 or 3 rounds against pretty much everybody except for Israel Adesanya. So I like Whittaker quite a bit. But yeah, Dricus, like you said, he's that wild card, right? He's a guy who, what I worry about more than anything, even more than like a round 1 Dricus, is like a round 3 Dricus, to be honest. Like, what if he plays possum? Like, he looks like he's dead to rights, and then Robert Whittaker kind of like, maybe shoots in on a takedown like he does later in the fight, and goes right into like that high elbow guillotine, and Dricus du Plessis just gets caught right at the buzzer. Like, that's what I worry about in this fight. Something meme worthy happening there, but overall, if there's a spot like you counted it down. I think the last time that Robert Whittaker finished a fight was Jacare Souza all the way back in 2017. But he's been fighting killers. This is a spot where he probably could put Dricus away, but is he going to expose himself? Is he going to be that aggressive to take the risk? I'm not so sure. I'd feel better about that in a 5-round fight, obviously, with Dricus, but had my man Brandon in here asking about the construction surgery. I know his coach said something about like he was only getting 8% oxygen intake through his nose up until this point. So we're looking at an extra 92% oxygen through his nose. So it'll be like he's wearing an oxygen mask out there now. Just a complete roided out version of cardio for Dricus du Plessis. I'm going to laugh when this doesn't make any difference at all in the fight and he's still gassed out after a minute, because I wonder what his excuse will be then. But yeah, I don't know, dude. Come on. Like, Robert Whittaker, I think should cruise here. Usually Dricus is very dangerous when he's getting the fight to the mat. His ground and pound is nasty. Snatching up submissions, that's a pretty nasty tactic of his. But I mean, yeah, and if you're not championship caliber, you're not even giving Robert Whittaker a tough fight. So yeah, Rob's the pick here. I'm just struggling to find ways to play this because I was thinking all week about Robert Whittaker inside the distance, but I'm less confident talking it out now. I don't think he's going to expose himself that way. But man, you can anything else on that one that's sticking out?
No, it's funny you say that because Dricus at Media Day today was talking about the surgery. He basically said he's still going to get tired and gas out, but he's just going to look better doing it. Which I think he is going to still gas out.
I like what he said. I think it was after the Brad Tavares, his first decision win. He said something like to the effect of like, "My gas tank is on empty. No, my gas tank is on low, but it's never on empty."
Oh my God.
It summed it up perfectly.
Yeah.
But man, we can move on to the first of 2 title fights here. The co-main event at flyweight. We got Brandon Moreno, reigning defending champion, taking on Alexander Pantoja, who is a familiar foe to this guy. They had one exhibition bout years ago in 2016 on The Ultimate Fighter. That was a Pantoja submission win. And we had, once again, I think it was 2018, they had a bout in the UFC over 3 rounds, and it was a clear, dominant performance from Alexander Pantoja. But Brandon Moreno was super young, in his early 20s at that point for both fights. He's had quite a career since then, including a quadrilogy between Moreno and Davison Figueiredo. So certainly looks a lot better, but you got to imagine that there's going to be some potential improvements made on the Pantoja side as well. This guy's a nasty grappler. Brandon Moreno, more of a high volume striker, but he does dabble in the wrestling himself. Should be a fun fight. The flyweight division has proven to be pretty volatile, so far, especially these high level fights. Even in the Davison Figueiredo Moreno fight, we saw pretty closely scheduled fights, and they were kind of different results each time. So coming off of that round 3 doctor stoppage for Moreno, we haven't seen Alexander Pantoja since a year ago when he beat Alex Perez in one of the most gangster ways ever. He just marched down Perez, just took his body triangle, locked in standing, and cranked on his neck. So it was kind of an aggressive start there. Can we see that type of game plan from Pantoja in this fight? I think we can. I think we could see a really strong start to this guy who's a sizable underdog. We're looking at Brandon Moreno minus 190, plus 165 for Pantoja. Just based on that number, it just, once again, dude, common theme. It looks like this could be a closer line. I personally lean Moreno in this one. I think that the 5-round nature of the fight could probably just go to his benefit as it goes on. I've seen Pantoja slow down, but I feel like I'm missing a lot of data on Pantoja. The guy's impressive, Brady, but he just hasn't fought a whole lot. So is that a reason? Is there a reason for that? Or is that because he's been waiting for like the division to settle with all of the rematches? Do you know?
I don't know, but when he's been fighting lately, he's kind of getting in and getting out. Remember the Perez fight, went out there and just like starched him.
He just walked through his strikes. He didn't even throw anything, I don't think. He just walked right into him and said, "Turn around. I'm putting a body triangle on you, and I'm going home with the victory." And that was about it. So, again, do you think that the 5-round nature of this fight for Brandon Moreno, who's done this time and time again for the past handful of years, do you think that's enough of a reason to pick him in this fight, or do you think there is value on the dog with his grappling upside?
So I picked Pantoja and low confidence, and you mentioned why. Like if this was a 3-round fight, I'd be max betting Pantoja at plus 175. It's just the 5-round fight is the reason I can't bet him. When I am betting a fighter, I typically have a rule, don't bet fighters with bad cardio. And Pantoja's shown bad cardio in 3-round fights. So what's he going to look like in the 4th and the 5th against a guy in Moreno that has went to the 4th and the 5th round multiple times? We don't know what Pantoja is going to look like. Pantoja, what I'm worried about is Pantoja comes out here and fights like a madman like he did in the Perez fight. And if he does not get Moreno out of there, what is he going to look like once this fight hits the 3rd, 4th, and 5th? Like I remember watching the Askar Askarov fight, and Pantoja looked bad in the 3rd round. He was gassed out. He was looking up at the clock. That is a major concern, and that's why I cannot bet on Pantoja this week. Like even in I think it was the Royval fight, he got the submission win 2nd round, but he was starting to look very, very tired after a very high-paced fight in that Royval fight. So due to the cardio issues, I can't bet Pantoja. Some spots I was kind of looking at though. I think the Pantoja plus 3.5 is plus 5.5 for this fight. Plus 5.5 is interesting. All he has to do is win 1 round. I think he wins the first 2 rounds potentially. Just has to hold on to that 4th and 5th. Which again, that's a concern. Like I think Moreno might be live for like a late finish. I think the Moreno 4th and 5th round props are interesting. I think I saw like 1,900 and like 2,300, something like that. Ooh. But I haven't officially pulled the trigger on anything here.
I've got nothing on this fight so far.
Yeah, I mean nothing's really sticking out to me. I thought like
what about what Michael Panza is saying? With both of these guys never been knocked out, never been submitted. Do you think this could be an over 3.5 round spot, or do you not? The danger of the submission threat early from Pantoja, which I think is one of his best conditions, is what's kind of scaring me off of that.
Yeah, because it is like minus 175. I think if this fight finishes under 3.5, it's a Pantoja sub. I think the fight could go, but it is going to be sweaty. Like Pantoja is going to have opportunities early, and the Moreno is probably going to have opportunities late. I actually picked the fight to go the distance, but I'm not so sure. So I don't know. Nothing's really like jumping out to me on this one. I might just be one I sit back and watch. And then, like I said, maybe I'll just sprinkle those Moreno like late round props, because, like I said, we've never seen Pantoja in the 4th and the 5th, and this guy's looked bad in the 3rd. So let me see, double check these. But Moreno round 4 is plus 1,900. And then Moreno round 5 plus 2,300. I kind of like those as like long shot props.
Yeah, not bad. And along those lines, I mean, those are small investments. I like the ability to live bet this fight if you can, because in a lot of fights so far, like we talked about, we've got Pantoja being a very good fast starter, and a lot of fights, Brandon Moreno is a guy who kind of sits back, gets reads, and he can be kind of a slow starter that builds into these 5-round fights and makes it competitive as his opponents sort of fade. So if you could get the control time, but he doesn't get submitted in round 1 for Pantoja, we could probably get closer to an even money play, minus 150 to plus 100, possibly after round 1 on Moreno. And then maybe if, Pantoja's got enough juice in the tank to do it again in round 2, you could gamble and maybe put a little bit more on Moreno and hope that he builds in and wins the next 3 rounds of the fight. But it's one of these rare spots. I'm not a big live bettor myself. I should, I'm just not present enough to do it all the time. But this is one of the spots where I might be around just to look for that spot, because I do like Moreno. I like all of his experience, but I don't want to pay that kind of money on him when the dangerous part of the fight is going to be the early part of the fight. So, yeah, the late round sprinkles, I wrote those down. I might add those in. But I like those in both the co-main and the main event, to be honest. We got 138 on the Pantoja side. So it gets past the rounds. The rounds are 3 rounds, and Pantoja has been working hard. I might live bet Moreno, but Pantoja is the side. Yeah, it might be a spot you could hedge out on that if, he looks like he's fading. Looks like he's looking up at the clock the way that Brady was talking about. I did see that. I rewatched that Royval fight, and that was a spot where he sold it all, Pantoja, for the grappling in round 1. And luckily, he got the job done in the next part of the fight because it was looking pretty rough for him. But yeah, man, what about striking for striking in this fight? Like Moreno's got a lot of good boxing weapons. Not always the most defensively sound. He can be kind of hittable, but I feel like the striking weapons are limited for Pantoja. He's got some good tricks, especially in their first fight, but this was years ago. That nice looping lead hook that he traps people with when they escape. What do you like about the striking for both of these guys? What if they stayed on the feet?
Man, I think we saw in the first fight that Pantoja got the better of the striking, but I think it's the opposite nowadays. I like Moreno's striking. He's gotten so much better over like the last 5-6 years. His striking looks a lot better. The boxing, the volume. I expect Pantoja to get this fight down to the mat. I think he actually does. It's just, is he subbing Moreno? He's done it before, but like I said, that was so long ago. And by the way, the Pantoja round 1 sub prop is like plus 1,500, and then Pantoja round 2 sub is like plus 2,000. I feel like those will maybe not hit, but I think they'll have opportunities to do so. So just some maybe I'll just sprinkle some like just ridiculous props, do like a 0.15 units on a couple of these early Pantoja props or Moreno late, but nothing I'm like in love with, I'd say.
Yeah, there's a lot of those spots where we're just nickel and diming certain spots on this card, certain spots for fights that we like, and hoping that at least a few of them hit to cover their big long shot odds here. But we got Shady saying Moreno 4-5 decision, pretty much in line with kind of a mix of both of the ways we're seeing this fight to play out. But we got Brady leaning Pantoja, we got me leaning Moreno, but we both like just the general principle that it's going to be, the later rounds are going to go to Moreno and the early rounds to Pantoja. So we find common ground there. We move on to the main event at featherweight. Alexander Volkanovski taking on Yair Rodriguez, 145-pound bout. And we do have the reigning defending champion coming off of a loss here, but that was up a weight class in February, trying to reach that champ status against Islam Makhachev. And I got to say, man, that was a pretty impressive performance in a loss. A guy who is 10 pounds lighter, already sort of like outsized in stature for his own weight class, but he goes in there against the feared Islam Makhachev, and he stuffs more than half of his takedowns. He outstrikes the guy, and he's dangerous, and hurts him in round 5. So I mean, what more can you ask for in a loss than that of Volkanovski earlier this year? Yair Rodriguez, super creative Taekwondo style striker. His kicks are just a super highly utilized weapon, really effective to all targets. You can look at over the course of this guy's career in the UFC, his leg kicks are pretty nasty in pretty much every one of his fights. But the body work we saw against Emmett last time out, the same night that Volkanovski took on Makhachev, Yair Rodriguez beat Josh Emmett by round 2, basically a club and sub, like a flying knee to triangle choke in round 2 after some early adversity in round 1. So both guys having a little bit of momentum coming in here, even though it's off of a loss for Volkanovski. I think he returns to featherweight here and dominates once again. The money line's wide as expected for a Volkanovski spot. He's a minus 400 favorite. Yair Rodriguez about a plus 300 underdog. I can see why, and I can see why people have some faith in Yair. He represents a very unique challenge, a guy who's throwing unorthodox strikes that you just can't really plan for. And all of his kicks, I think, will certainly have their opportunity to hit on a guy who's 5'6" in stature in Volkanovski, but super durable is Volkanovski, a guy who's just been completely dominant so far and actually getting better as his career and his title run has progressed. I don't know, man. It's a hard spot for Yair. I lean Volkanovski just because I don't see many weaknesses for Volkanovski. Whereas Yair, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, he's not had the most active schedule. He's a guy who can be taken down, and Volkanovski will start sprinkling in takedowns as the fight progresses. insane cardio and pace. I think he breaks Yair, and I've actually got Volkanovski just a 3/4 unit play on him inside the distance at plus 160. And I'm sprinkling his round 3, round 4, and round 5 finish props as well. I even saw Volkanovski inside the distance at plus 185 today on FanDuel too. So I could have gotten a better line on that. But what do you think about this one, man? Are you on the Yair Rodriguez side? Do you think Mexico gets another champion on Saturday?
Nope. And it's funny because you didn't listen to my stuff this week. I didn't listen to your stuff for this reason. Same exact read, 110%. Yeah, I'm on the Volk inside the distance as well. I'm on the fight doesn't go to decision. FanDuel was hanging a plus 124 for a while. I took that. And then I also wanted to also sprinkle those 3, 4, and 5, sprinkle them on FanDuel. So on FanDuel, they had oh, that's not bad. So Volk round 3, they had it plus 1,600. It's now plus 1,400. Volk round 4, they had it 2,000. Now it's plus 1,800. Like these aren't bad. 1,800, and then Volk round 5 plus 2,400. Those aren't terrible. I think the late finishes are going to be in play. Yair slows down as the fight goes on. I think early on he might have some success on the feet, but I kind of think Volk's going to take him down here. We haven't really seen Volk go to the wrestling as of late, but I still think there's a serious hole in the wrestling game of Yair Rodriguez, the takedown defense, the get-up game. Yes, he throws up submissions, but he can be stuck on his back. We saw Max Holloway getting to dominant positions. We're talking about Max Holloway here, getting to dominant positions. Max Holloway almost submitted Yair not once, but twice in that fight. We saw Jeremy Stevens, get on top in the second fight multiple times, land ground and pound, late second round, third round. We saw Frankie Edgar completely dominate him. TKO him due to a doctor's stoppage after the second round.
Was that the one where it was ground and pound that swelled up his eye? Was that the fight?
It was bad, and I can see that. I can see a doctor's stoppage. I think this is going to be an absolute beatdown. But yeah, obviously Volkanovski's not going to wrestle against Islam Makhachev. He's not wrestling against Max Holloway. He did wrestle against the Korean Zombie, but he's not going to wrestle against Jose Aldo. He hasn't really had to wrestle a lot lately. Earlier in his career, he did. He got 3 takedowns in his debut, 4 takedowns the next fight, 5 the next fight. So he has wrestled before. It's just as of late, he has not. Volk's a smart guy. I mean, this guy is one of the best fighters, pound for pound, in the UFC. I think he's going to wrestle here. And if he does, I think he exposes Yair here. I think he dominates him. I think he lands big shots, breaks him. And I think a doctor's stoppage is in play here. I think it's going to be bad.
I never thought about that, but that's a good thought. That never even crossed my mind.
Yeah, I wish you could bet doctor's stoppage win for Volkanovski plus 1,000. But he almost got a doctor's stoppage in the Ortega fight multiple times. The doctor came in and was like, "Can you see?" And Ortega was like, "No, I can't." And the doctor's like, "Okay, go ahead, you're good." So yeah, I think Volk stops him here late rounds, 3, 4, 5, and like I said, a potential doctor stoppage is in play. I think
that may have been one of the most stressful fights of. I was probably more stressed out than Volkanovski was when he got caught in that mounted guillotine from Ortega.
Gosh,
because I had so much money on Volkanovski, dude. I had him parlayed with a bunch of stuff on that.
I was there live watching.
Oh my god, that's an amazing. Yeah, UFC 266. I'll never forget that one. But that was and then as soon as you have that, your heart rate goes back to normal for a second, he falls into a triangle choke out of nowhere, just falls into that one, and you got to relive the panic all over again. Took decades off of my life at least, but man, that is one thing that I do like about Volkanovski is he's actually been in really tough spots before in fights, in the midst of fights, and come out the other side victorious. Not only the best submission, from Brian Ortega, but also, taking on Max Holloway for the series that they fought, and one of the best, most feared cardio machines, high output strikers, probably record-setting high output numbers, and he basically almost doubles up Max Holloway by the end of their trilogy in strikes there. So, yeah, if that's a guy that's stopping Yair Rodriguez not too long ago, then I think Volkanovski's on yet another level. It would take something real weird from Yair Rodriguez, something real unorthodox, something pretty much reminiscent of that upward elbow from Yair on the Korean Zombie to end this one. So that's my opinion. I think the money line maybe a little bit wide by nature, but I think it makes sense when you think about it. I wouldn't expect Volkanovski to be anything less than where he's at now, but I think we are finding some good ways to play the inside the distance for some solid plus money here. So that is it, man. We got through all 14 fights at UFC 290. Thank everybody for being here. All 19 of you guys in the chat. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. And as always, love breaking down fights with my guy, Brady. It's always an honor, man. And I wish you the best and safest travels going out to Las Vegas, one of the favorite cities of mine. And yeah, it's going to be a fun time, dude. This is a great card. Double championship live. Can't get any better than that, dude.
Let's go. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Bo Nickal fight week, Muscle Hamster on the card. It's gonna be a fun card.
The nice thing about Vegas too is like their time zone is so wacky that not only do you gain time back flying out there from where you're at, but you the fights, like the prelims, start shockingly early compared to what you're used to. So yeah. you're no more than like, waking up from a slumber from the night before, getting brunch, and it's like, oh, I got to go to the arena already. It's time for the prelims. So that'll be a fun time, and you have to take pictures and keep me posted. But yeah, let the people know where they can find you. Of course, people know DFS by the numbers unless you live under a rock, but your information is in the description, as well as your website. If you want to plug that, that's in the description as well.
Yeah, thanks, man, for having me on. I was excited when you asked me to come on. Busy week, but I had to make time. I mean, we haven't broke down fights in a while. I mean, we do it, every couple of weeks on my show, but on your show, we haven't done it in a while, so right. Always fun. Yeah, so I will be going live like 12 o'clock Eastern time on Friday for my Final Thoughts stream. And then after that, I'm gonna head out the door and go to Vegas, and it should be a good time. Gonna try to make some money. I feel like we found some spots, man. I feel like we found some spots, yeah. Some plus money spots, and I have some bets to make after the show and after they release props. Which, by the way, like, what are they doing? Like, it's International Fight Week, UFC 290, and we got nothing on FanDuel and DraftKings. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, man, give me the Bo Nickal same game parlay options. Let's go. Come on, I gotta find ways to bet Val Woodburn like in the first I don't know, round 2, round 3, Val Woodburn by like Amaplata or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, man, that wraps it up. So man, I'm late to my own panel. I co-host with the Couch Warrior. I'm just a bonehead this week. I had a few different guest spots to do, and I forget about the time zones. I'm in Central Time. Brady and a lot of other guys in this space are in Eastern. So I was like, oh, this is great. I'll do an hour and a half with Brady, and I'll jump over right on time to the panel. But it turns out I scheduled it like a half an hour apart. So I'm going to go jump over there if you want to join me on the Couch Warriors panel. But otherwise, you guys, good luck with all your betting action. I'll talk to you guys next time. Cheers.